Stay tuned for the next half hour. We have Attorney General Gary King in the studios. We're going to talk to him about the economy and a variety of other issues there. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the show,
Yeah.
because I know you were back. You were here with me last year.
Yeah.
We'll get into the economy a little bit. We'll start with the state economy. I know there's a lot of doom and gloom out there right
Yes.
now. People are worried. A lot of jobs at stake. We lost about 50,000 jobs in the last few years. Part of them were due to the housing bubble crashing. 3,000 businesses shut their doors. What are your thoughts on the overall economy? What do you feel that we're going towards as a state, say in the next? It's very difficult to tell because the national economy is doing unusual things right now. The stock market is up, but then
Yes.
the main street's kind of suffering. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm concerned about the direction that we're going still. I think that there's been some improvement, and certainly in the housing market, and our office has been pretty active in dealing with certain housing issues. I think that state workers certainly, and by and large, as far as I know, workers that work for private companies have not had any significant increase in salary in the last 4 years, and so that causes the economy to be very stagnant. And then I'm also concerned about what they call, I think, the jobless recovery, where there are certain, like you said, the stock market is doing better, but we're not seeing that on the ground for average working families in New Mexico who are, underemployed or may have some issues there. We actually in our office have been working particularly this year with what we call the wage theft task force, which is interested in issues of workers who are being forced to work overtime and not being paid for it, or who are working off the clock in other ways, or those kinds of things. And I think in a difficult economy, that a lot of people feel like they have to make sacrifices in order to keep their jobs, and I don't think that that's a good situation yet. I think we really need a robust economy where we're creating jobs for students that are graduating from New Mexico schools, from our universities, and from our high schools. So I think that there's still a good bit of work to be done yet in New Mexico before we get back to a point where we're comfortable with our economy and the kind of growth that we have.
I know you're working on the HPP, the housing program there.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that and how that, because there's still, individuals are still affected by the foreclosures.
Sure.
And they're still having a hard time. And I remember last time you came, we had directed them to, I know it wasn't this, but this
Yes.
is the one you work with Congresswoman Michelle Lujan Grisham, correct?
We're certainly working with our congressional delegation now, but a lot of what drives what we call the HPP, or the, I have to think of what it's called now, the Homeowner Preservation Program.
Correct, yeah.
Is we want to try and keep people in their houses. Part of the cause of the economic downturn, I think, was over-speculation in houses, and there were certain mortgage issues. People remember the term robo-signing, but there were a lot of problems with people losing their houses, and it turns out that the financial institutions, the mortgage servicers, were not treating them fairly. And so all of the AGs in the country brought a suit against the 5 largest lending institutions, and as a result of that, we have a settlement. The settlement occurred last year, but the money from the settlement is just beginning to flow. And in New Mexico, we're using that settlement money to generate a program to try and keep lots of people in their houses, not just people that have, that have their loans with those 5 institutions, but for instance, we're having programs to make sure that people have access to HUD-certified housing counselors, so that when they're in their home and they're underwater or they're just in trouble before they even get foreclosed on, that there's a place that they can go. And we actually have a website and a 1-800 number, or a toll-free number, that people can call and get them directed to these services and resources to help them stay in their homes. And we've been working with financial institutions, and they're offering programs now that where some people are even capable of getting the principal of their mortgages reduced. So principal reduction was a big issue for us, because we recognized, because of the housing bubble, that a lot of people were in over their heads in their houses.
The HPP, the Housing Homeownership Preservation Program, is that an extension of what you started last year? Because
it is. So once we were successful in getting the settlement with the mortgage lenders, in New Mexico, we got a direct payment of $11 million that we could use for whatever purposes we saw fit. But we've put all of that into developing a 3-year program to help people stay in their homes, and that's the HPP. So that's just started, but it was an outgrowth of that. And then there are other federal programs that are available. I think people will be aware. I think it's called HAMP, as one of the federal programs. And there's actually Congresswoman Lujan Grisham pointed out that they're working on a particular HAMP program that's directed at veterans, for instance. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that people are aware of those federal programs that might help them too. So we're trying to get sort of a one-stop shop where people can go and get information. And the housing counselors are all over the state of New Mexico. So we're contracting with different organizations, the DNA People's Legal Services in the Navajo country, and a group called Cafe in Las Cruces. And I don't have the list in front of me, so I'll miss a few people. But
there's a lot of partners there.
Yeah, we have a lot of partners. Senior Citizens Legal Services, Legal Services Corporation that helps people that are low income, and there are some parts of this program where people that are of low income, and I think about 200% of poverty level, can even get legal services to help them to deal with the banks and their foreclosures. Because we found that a lot of people, once they got foreclosed on, just gave up or didn't know what to do. And so, if you look at the court cases in New Mexico, a lot of foreclosures get resolved by default because people just don't answer. And they don't know what's available to them. So we don't ever want somebody to lose their home for lack of knowledge or for lack of resources to try and help them do that. Sometimes people are going to lose their home anyway because occasionally your economic circumstances are such where you just can't continue to pay your mortgage.
I think there was a lot of information and misinformation out there as well. At the same time, sometimes people just don't know what to do. They're not sure who to contact. I think the mortgage companies are pretty poor in communicating with them, is that if they're having difficulty, where to go and stuff. In the next segment, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll get into a little bit different aspect of the economy and stuff. I want to talk to you about some of the diversification that some of the groups are talking about, okay?
Good.
So we'll come back.
Thank you. Sure.
We're back with Attorney General Gary King.